Marcus Blackwood stood at his bedroom window, staring out at the vast expanse of his Texas ranch as the sun painted the horizon in shades of gold and crimson. Tomorrow would be his wedding day, and he had never felt less like celebrating in his 35 years of life. The Rolling Stone Ranch stretched for thousands of acres in every direction, making him one of the wealthiest cattle barons in the state, but all his. Success felt meaningless when faced with marrying a complete stranger. The arrangement had been orchestrated by his father, William Blackwood, before the old man's death 6 months earlier. William had been obsessed with creating a splendid dynasty that would last generations, and he had spent years negotiating a marriage contract with the influential Carmichael family from Virginia. The agreement would merge to powerful agricultural empires, creating an unstoppable force in American cattle and grain production. Marcus had fought against the arrangement for years, arguing that he should have the freedom to choose his own wife based on love rather than business considerations. But William had been relentless, threatening to leave the ranch to distant cousins if Marcus didn't honor the family commitment. The old man had used every manipulation tactic imaginable, from guilt about family legacy to warnings about the ranch's financial future without strategic alliances. The bride-to-be was Elizabeth Carmichael, daughter of Virginia's most successful grain producer. Marcus had never met her in person, having seen only a formal portrait that revealed little beyond classical beauty and expensive clothing. Their entire courtship had consisted of carefully worded letters exchanged over months, discussing practical matters like household management and business integration, rather than personal interests or romantic feelings. Elizabeth's letters had been polite but distant, revealing a well-educated woman who understood her duty but showed no enthusiasm for their upcoming union. She wrote about managing large households, coordinating social events, and supporting her husband's business interests with the efficiency of someone discussing crop rotation schedules. Marcus found her correspondence intelligent but completely devoid of warmth or personality. The wedding preparations had consumed months of planning, with both families determined to create an event that would announce their merged power to competitors and allies throughout the region. Guest lists included governors, railroad barons, and influential politicians who could benefit from the combined Blackwood-Carmichael influence. The ceremony had become more about business networking than celebrating love between two people. Marcus had tried everything to escape the arrangement without dishonoring his family's reputation. He had considered fleeing to California or even Europe, but his sense of responsibility to the ranch workers and community kept him anchored. Hundreds of families depended on the Rolling Stone Ranch for their livelihoods. Marcus couldn't abandon them to protect his own happiness. His closest friend, Rodriguez, had been the ranch foreman for 15 years and had watched Marcus grow from a rebellious young man into a capable leader. Tom had tried to convince Marcus that many arranged marriages eventually developed into genuine partnerships, but Marcus remained skeptical about finding happiness with someone chosen for business reasons rather than compatibility. The ranch house had been transformed for the wedding celebration, with workers hanging decorations, setting up dining areas for hundreds of guests, and preparing guest quarters for visitors traveling from across the country. Marcus felt like a stranger in his own home, watching preparations for an event that felt more like a funeral than a celebration of new beginnings. Elizabeth was scheduled to arrive later that evening with her family and entourage, having traveled by train from Virginia with enough luggage to suggest she was moving permanently to Texas. Marcus had been dreading this moment for months. Knowing that meeting his bride in person would make the arrangement feel irreversibly real, he had built up mental images of a cold, calculating woman who viewed their marriage as purely transactional. The Carmichael family's reputation preceded them throughout agricultural circles. They were known for shrewd business practices, political connections that opened doors throughout Washington, and social ambitions that had elevated them from modest farmers to influential power brokers within 2 generations. Elizabeth had been raised in this environment, educated to become the perfect wife for a man of Marcus's status and wealth. Marcus spent his final unmarried evening riding his favorite horse through pastures where he had played as a child and learned ranching from his grandfather. The land held memories of happiness and freedom that seemed incompatible with the constrained future he faced. He wondered if he would ever again feel the simple joy of riding alone through his domain without the weight of family obligations and business partnerships. The Rolling Stone Ranch had been in the Blackwood family for 3 generations, built by Marcus's grandfather, who had arrived in Texas with nothing but determination and a gift for understanding cattle. Marcus felt the weight of that legacy pressing down on him, knowing that his personal happiness was considered less important than maintaining the family's growing influence and wealth. As darkness fell, Marcus returned to the house to prepare for meeting his future bride. He dressed in his finest clothes, practiced polite conversation topics, and tried to convince himself that he could learn to be content in a marriage built on mutual respect rather than love. His reflection in the mirror showed a handsome, successful man who had everything except the freedom to choose his own destiny. The sound of approaching carriages announced the arrival of the Carmichael family, their traveling party creating a small convoy of vehicles filled with luggage, servants, and wedding guests who had made the journey from Virginia. Marcus took a deep breath and prepared to meet the woman who would share his name and his life. Regardless of whether they would ever share genuine affection or understanding, Marcus walked downstairs to greet his guests, feeling like an actor, preparing to perform in a play he had never wanted to join. The next few hours would determine whether his worst fears about arranged marriage were justified, or whether he might discover unexpected possibilities for happiness within the constraints his father had created. Either way, tomorrow would change everything about his carefully controlled life on the Rolling Stone Ranch. Marcus descended the grand staircase of his family home, each step feeling heavier than the last as he approached his first face-to-face meeting with Elizabeth Carmichael. The main hall buzzed with activity as servants attended to the arriving guests, but Marcus felt detached from the scene, like he was watching someone else's life unfold before his eyes. Charles Carmichael, Elizabeth's father, was the first person Marcus recognized from descriptions. The man commanded attention without effort, his silver hair and piercing gray eyes conveying the authority that had built a grain empire from modest beginnings. Charles greeted Marcus with the calculated warmth of someone sealing a business deal, shaking hands firmly while assessing the young man who would soon be his son-in-law, the Carmichael. The entourage included Elizabeth's mother, Margaret, whose elegant bearing and sharp intelligence immediately explained where Elizabeth had acquired her reputation for social sophistication. Margaret studied Marcus with the thoroughness of someone evaluating livestock, though her smile remained gracious throughout their introduction. Her approval seemed important to the family dynamics. Marcus sensed he was being tested. Elizabeth's younger brother, James, appeared more relaxed than his parents, offering Marcus genuine friendship rather than calculated networking. James was clearly proud of his sister, but also seemed sympathetic to Marcus's situation, understanding that arranged marriages created stress for both parties involved. His easy manner provided a brief respite from the formal tension surrounding the meeting, but Elizabeth herself remained conspicuously absent from the initial greetings. Margaret explained that the journey had been exhausting, and Elizabeth was resting before the evening's formal dinner, where both families would celebrate their upcoming union. Marcus felt both relieved and frustrated by the delay, wanting to get their first meeting over with, while also dreading the moment when pretense would become necessary. The dinner that evening was a carefully orchestrated affair, designed to showcase both families' sophistication and wealth. The dining room had been decorated with flowers shipped from New Orleans, fine china inherited from Marcus's grandmother, and silver that reflected candlelight in patterns that danced across the walls. Every detail was calculated to impress guests and create an atmosphere worthy of the merger being celebrated. Marcus took his assigned seat at the head of the table, with Elizabeth's chair positioned to his right, where she would sit once she made her entrance. The other guests had already been seated according to a complex protocol that considered business relationships, social status, and family connections. Marcus felt like a prop in an elaborate theatrical production rather than the guest of honor at his own celebration. When Elizabeth finally appeared in the dining room doorway, Marcus experienced his first surprise of the evening. The formal portrait he had seen had failed to capture the grace with which she moved, or the intelligence that sparkled in her dark eyes. She wore a deep blue dress that complemented her auburn hair, and she carried herself with confidence that suggested strength rather than mere social training. Elizabeth's entrance created a subtle shift in the room's energy as conversations paused and attention focused on the bride-to-be. She acknowledged the attention with a slight smile that seemed genuinely warm rather than practiced. She moved around to table, greeting guests with personalized comments that demonstrated impressive memory for names and details about people she had never met before. When Elizabeth finally reached Marcus's chair, their eyes met for the first time, and he felt a jolt of unexpected connection. Her handshake was firm, her smile reached her eyes, and her voice carried musical qualities that her letters had never suggested. She thanked him for his hospitality with sincerity that caught him off guard, making him wonder if his preconceptions about her character had been entirely wrong, the dinner conversation revealed aspects of Elizabeth's personality that surprised Marcus repeatedly throughout the evening. She discussed agricultural innovations with knowledge that went beyond polite interest, asked thoughtful questions about Texas ranching that suggested genuine curiosity, and demonstrated a quick wit that kept pace with the most intelligent guests. At the table, Marcus found himself actually enjoying Elizabeth's company as the evening progressed. She laughed at his stories about ranch life, shared amusing anecdotes about Virginia society that revealed a playful sense of humor, and showed interest in his plans for expanding the ranch's operations. Her intelligence was evident, but it was paired with warmth that made conversation feel natural rather than forced. Elizabeth seemed equally surprised by Marcus, later confiding to her mother that she had expected a crude cowboy with more money than sophistication. Instead, she found a well-educated man who was passionate about his land and genuinely concerned about the welfare of his workers and community. His dedication to the ranch seemed to come from love rather than just profit motives. The evening's success created cautious optimism among both families, who had been prepared for potential conflicts between strong-willed individuals forced into an unwanted arrangement. Instead, they witnessed what appeared to be genuine attraction developing between two people who had expected to merely tolerate each other for the sake of family obligations. After dinner, Marcus offered to show Elizabeth the ranch house's library, hoping for private conversation away from their family's watchful eyes. Elizabeth accepted eagerly, admitting she had been curious about his book collection since arriving. The library had been Marcus's refuge since childhood, filled with volumes on everything from cattle breeding to philosophy that reflected his wide-ranging interests. Elizabeth examined the bookshelves with the enthusiasm of someone who genuinely loved reading, commenting on titles she recognized and asking about authors she hadn't encountered before. Marcus discovered they shared interests in history, poetry, and agricultural science that could provide foundation for future conversations. Her questions were intelligent, and her observations were insightful. Their time in the library extended well beyond polite social requirements, as both Marcus and Elizabeth seemed reluctant to return to the formal atmosphere of family supervision. They discussed books, shared stories about their childhoods, and began exploring common ground that neither had expected to find. The conversation felt easy and natural, creating hope that their marriage might include genuine friendship. When they finally rejoined their families, both Marcus and Elizabeth seemed more relaxed and optimistic about their future together. Carmichael looked pleased by the apparent success of their first meeting, while Margaret seemed satisfied that her daughter had made a favorable impression. The evening ended with both families expressing confidence that the marriage would benefit everyone involved, as the Carmichael family retired to their guest quarters. Marcus found himself looking forward to spending more time with Elizabeth before their wedding ceremony. She had exceeded his expectations in every way, replacing his fears of marrying a cold stranger with anticipation about discovering what other surprises she might reveal. For the first time since agreeing to the arrangement, Marcus felt genuinely hopeful about his future. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and bright, with Texas sunshine streaming through the windows of Marcus's bedroom as he prepared for the most important day of his life. His initial dread had transformed into nervous anticipation after spending the previous evening getting to know Elizabeth, but he still felt the weight of permanently joining his life to someone he had known for less than 24 hours. Marcus's valet, Samuel, had been with the Blackwood family for 30 years and had helped Marcus's dress for every significant occasion since boyhood. Samuel understood the importance of this day and worked meticulously to ensure every detail of Marcus's appearance was perfect. The black formal suit had been tailored specifically for the wedding. Samuel made final adjustments while offering quiet encouragement about the step Marcus was taking. Downstairs, the ranch house had been completely transformed into a wedding, a venue that rivaled anything found in major cities. Hundreds of white roses decorated every surface, creating an atmosphere of elegance that complemented the rustic charm of the Texas ranch setting. Workers had constructed an outdoor altar where the ceremony would take place, positioned to take advantage of the spectacular view across the Rolling Stone Ranch's pastures. Guest carriages had been arriving since dawn, bringing influential families from across Texas and neighboring states who wanted to witness the union of two powerful agricultural dynasties. The guest list represented a who's who of American business and politics, with railroad barons, cattle kings, and even a few congressmen among the attendees. The wedding had become as much a business networking event as a personal celebration. Tom Rodriguez had been helping coordinate the logistics of managing so many important guests, maintaining the ranch's daily operations. Tom understood better than anyone how much this day meant to Marcus, not just personally, but for the future of everyone who depended on the Rolling Stone Ranch for their livelihood. The success of this marriage could secure prosperity for the entire community. Elizabeth spent her morning in the guest quarters with her mother and a team of ladies, maids who had traveled from Virginia specifically to help prepare the bride. The wedding dress had been created by the finest seamstress in Richmond, featuring layers of silk and lace that had taken months to complete. Every detail had been planned to create a visual statement about the Carmichael family's sophistication and wealth. Margaret Carmichael supervised every aspect of her daughter's preparation with the attention to detail that had made her famous throughout Virginia society. She understood that this wedding would be scrutinized by influential people whose opinions could affect the family's business relationships for years to come. Elizabeth's appearance needed to be flawless to maintain the family's reputation for excellence. But Elizabeth seemed surprisingly calm despite the magnitude of the day and the number of important people who would be watching her every move. Her conversation with Marcus the previous evening had eased her fears about marrying a stranger, placing anxiety with curiosity about the man who would become her husband. She had discovered unexpected depth in Marcus that gave her hope for building a meaningful partnership. The ceremony was scheduled for mid-afternoon, allowing time for guests to arrive and settle into the outdoor seating that had been arranged to provide everyone with clear views of the altar. Musicians had been positioned strategically to provide accompaniment that would carry across the ranch's open spaces without overwhelming the natural beauty of the setting. Marcus took his position at the altar 30 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin, greeting guests and accepting congratulations while trying to manage his nervousness about the commitment he was about to make. Many of the attendees had known his father and offered comments about William's pride in seeing his son carry on family traditions through such an advantageous marriage. The processional began with Elizabeth's attendance. Young women from prominent Virginia families who had traveled to Texas for the wedding. They moved gracefully down the aisle between seated guests, carrying bouquets of roses that matched the decorations throughout the venue. Their presence added elegance to the proceedings while building anticipation for the bride's entrance. James Carmichael escorted his sister down the aisle, having been chosen for this honor after their father suffered a minor injury during the journey to Texas. Elizabeth had requested James for the role anyway, feeling closer to her brother than to their father, who often seemed more interested in business than family relationships. James understood the significance of the moment and took his responsibility seriously. As Elizabeth appeared at the far end of the aisle, Marcus felt his breath catch in his throat. The wedding dress transformed her from the intelligent, charming woman he had met the previous evening into a vision of bridal beauty that exceeded anything he had imagined. The veil covering her face created an air of mystery that made his heart race with anticipation about lifting it during the point ceremony. Elizabeth moved down the aisle with measured steps, that allowed guests to admire her dress while building suspense. About the moment when Marcus would see her face clearly for the first time as his bride, her composure impressed everyone present, as she seemed completely comfortable despite hundreds of pairs of eyes following her every movement. When Elizabeth reached the altar, she turned to face Marcus with a smile that was visible even through her veil. Her eyes sparkled with what appeared to be genuine happiness rather than mere duty, giving Marcus hope that she was experiencing some of the same unexpected anticipation that had replaced his earlier dread about their marriage. The minister, Reverend Patterson, had traveled from Austin specifically to perform the ceremony that would unite two of Texas's most influential families. He had known Marcus since childhood and understood the importance of creating a meaningful ceremony that honored both the business significance of the union and the personal commitment being made by two young people. The wedding vows were traditional, but heartfelt, with both Marcus and Elizabeth speaking clearly enough for guests to hear their promises to love, honor, and cherish each other through whatever challenges their marriage might bring. Marcus found himself meaning the words more than he had expected, while Elizabeth seemed equally sincere in her commitment to their shared future. The moment arrived for Marcus to lift Elizabeth's veil as a symbolic act that would reveal his bride's face and complete their transformation from strangers bound by family obligation into husband and wife. Marcus raised his hands to the delicate lace that covered Elizabeth's features, his heart pounding with nervous excitement about this final step in their wedding ceremony. As the veil was lifted away from Elizabeth's face, Marcus saw her clearly, for the first time as his wife, and he felt a surge of emotion that surprised him with its intensity. Her beauty was enhanced by the happiness in her eyes, and her smile conveyed warmth that made him feel truly welcomed into her heart, rather than merely accepted as a husband chosen by her family. The kiss that sealed their marriage was gentle, but meaningful, creating a moment of intimacy that felt genuine despite the hundreds of witnesses surrounding them. Both Marcus and Elizabeth seemed surprised by the natural connection they felt, suggesting that their arranged marriage might develop into something deeper than either had dared to hope when they agreed to honor their family's wishes. The wedding reception that followed the ceremony was a grand affair that showcased the combined wealth and influence of both the Blackwood and Carmichael families. Tables laden with delicacies from across the country had been arranged throughout the ranch house and its surrounding gardens, while musicians provided entertainment that kept guests dancing and celebrating well into the evening hours. Marcus and Elizabeth moved through the reception together, accepting congratulations from influential guests while learning to present themselves as a unified couple. Their earlier connection during the ceremony seemed to strengthen throughout the evening as they supported each other. Through the social demands of greeting hundreds of well-wishers and business associates, Charles Carmichael used the reception as an opportunity to introduce Marcus to grain buyers and railroad executives who could benefit the merged family enterprises. Marcus impressed these contacts with his knowledge of cattle markets and his vision for expanding operations, while Elizabeth charmed them with her intelligence and social grace. Together, they represented a formidable team that could achieve great things in agricultural business. The wedding cake was a masterpiece that had been created by pastry chefs brought from New Orleans specifically for the occasion. Standing nearly 4 feet tall and decorated with sugar flowers that matched Elizabeth's bridal bouquet, the cake symbolized the attention to detail that had characterized every aspect of the wedding planning. Cutting the cake together provided Marcus and Elizabeth with another opportunity to demonstrate their partnership to the assembled guests. As evening approached, many guests began preparing to depart for their various homes across Texas and beyond. The wedding had been deemed a complete success by social and business standards, with numerous new connections made and existing relationships strengthened. Both families felt satisfied that the event had accomplished its goals of announcing their alliance while celebrating the union of Marcus and Elizabeth. Tom Rodriguez had been coordinating the logistics of guest departures while ensuring that the most important business associates received appropriate attention from both Marcus and Elizabeth. Tom was impressed by how naturally Elizabeth had adapted to her role as the ranch's new mistress, showing genuine interest in the operations and treating all workers with respect, regardless of their social status. Elizabeth's conversations with Ranch workers revealed her genuine curiosity about their lives and work, contrasting favorably with other wealthy visitors who typically ignored anyone below their social class. She asked thoughtful questions about cattle breeding, land management, the challenges of running such a large operation, demonstrating that her interest in the ranch went beyond mere politeness. The newlyweds finally found themselves alone. Together, as the last guests departed and the cleanup began, Marcus and Elizabeth walked through the gardens where their reception had been held, surveying the remnants of their wedding day while beginning to contemplate their future as husband and wife. The formal pressures of the day had given way to a quieter intimacy that felt natural and comfortable. Elizabeth expressed gratitude for the warmth with which Marcus's community had welcomed her, noting that she had felt more accepted in one day at the ranch than she often did at Virginia's social events, where she had grown up. The genuine friendliness of Texas people contrasted favorably with the calculated interactions she was accustomed to among her parents' social circle. Marcus shared his surprise at how much he had enjoyed presenting Elizabeth to his friends and business associates, feeling proud of her intelligence and grace, rather than merely satisfied with her social appropriateness. He admitted that his fears about their arranged marriage had been largely unfounded, and he looked forward to discovering what other pleasant surprises their partnership might reveal. Their conversation that evening revealed shared values and compatible personalities that neither had expected to find in an arranged marriage. Both valued hard work over inherited privilege. Both cared about treating workers and community members with respect, and both were interested in building something meaningful rather than simply maintaining existing wealth and status. Elizabeth confided that she had been as reluctant about the arranged marriage as Marcus, but had been impressed by his character and his genuine love for the land and people of Texas. She had expected to marry a man who was wealthy but crude, instead finding someone whose education and sophistication matched her own while being grounded in practical experience and authentic relationships. Marcus revealed his initial resentment about being forced into marriage for business reasons, but acknowledged that he might never have met someone like Elizabeth through conventional courtship. Their family's arrangement had introduced him to a woman whose intelligence and strength complemented his own ambitions and values in ways he was still discovering. The ranch house felt different that evening, transformed from Marcus's bachelor residence into a home shared with a partner who seemed genuinely interested in becoming part of the community and operations. Elizabeth's belongings had been moved into the master suite, creating the first physical evidence of their new life together as husband and wife. Elizabeth expressed enthusiasm about learning ranch management and contributing to the operations in meaningful ways beyond traditional hostess duties. She had grown up around agricultural business and understood the complexities involved, but she was eager to learn about cattle ranching specifically and to understand how she could best support Marcus's goals and ambitions. The couple spent their first evening as husband and wife, planning improvements to the ranch house that would accommodate Elizabeth's needs while preserving the character that made it feel like home to Marcus. They discussed everything from adding a larger library to creating guest quarters that could house Elizabeth's family during future visits. Finding that they shared similar tastes and priorities, Marcus found himself genuinely excited about sharing his daily routine with Elizabeth, from morning rides across the ranch to evening discussions about business decisions and community issues. Her intelligence and curiosity would make her an ideal partner for tackling the challenges of managing such a large operation while maintaining the family's growing influence in agricultural circles. Elizabeth looked forward to establishing herself as a respected member of the local community, contributing to charitable causes and social organizations that could benefit from her resources and organizational skills. She had always felt constrained by Virginia society's expectations for women, and Texas seemed to offer more opportunities for meaningful involvement in business and community affairs as they retired to their shared bedroom for the first time. As husband and wife, both Marcus and Elizabeth felt cautiously optimistic about their future together. Their wedding day had exceeded both of their expectations, placing anxiety about arranged marriage with anticipation about building a partnership that could be both personally fulfilling and professionally successful. The transformation of their relationship from reluctant obligation to promising partnership had surprised everyone involved. including Marcus and Elizabeth themselves. What had begun as a business arrangement between families was evolving into something that might genuinely be called love. Given time and continued mutual respect and understanding between two people who were discovering they were more compatible than anyone had dared to hope, the first few months of marriage brought daily discoveries that strengthened the bond between Marcus and Elizabeth in ways neither had anticipated when they exchanged vows as virtual strangers. Elizabeth adapted to ranch life with enthusiasm. That impressed everyone, from the household staff to the cowboys who worked the vast herds across the Rolling Stone ranch's thousands of acres. Elizabeth's mornings began with Marcus before dawn, sharing coffee and discussing the day's priorities. While watching the sun rise over the Texas plains, she had insisted on learning every aspect of ranch operations, from cattle breeding records to financial management, demonstrating the same intelligence and attention to detail that had made her family successful in Virginia's grain business. Marcus found himself looking forward to these morning conversations, where Elizabeth's questions and observations often led to new insights about improving ranch efficiency and profitability. Her outsider's perspective helped him see opportunities he had overlooked, while her business background provided valuable expertise in areas where he had relied primarily on instinct and tradition. The couple established a routine of riding together across different sections of the ranch each day, with Marcus teaching Elizabeth to recognize signs of cattle health, land conditions, and weather patterns that affected operations. Elizabeth proved to be an excellent horsewoman who adapted quickly to the demands of managing livestock across challenging terrain. Elizabeth's presence transformed the ranch house from a masculine, bachelor residence into a welcoming home that reflected both partners' personalities and interests. She added feminine touches without eliminating the rustic character that Marcus loved, creating spaces where they could entertain guests, while maintaining the comfortable atmosphere that made the house feel like a true refuge. The local community embraced Elizabeth completely, appreciating her genuine interest in their lives and her contributions to church activities, school fundraising, and charitable projects that benefited families throughout the region. Unlike many wealthy outsiders who remained aloof from local concerns, Elizabeth integrated herself into community life with sincerity that won lasting friendships. Elizabeth's relationship with the ranch workers evolved from polite employer-employee interactions to genuine mutual respect, based on her willingness to learn from their expertise and her fair treatment of everyone regardless of their social status. The cowboys and household staff began viewing her as a true partner in ranch operations. Rather than just the boss's wife, Marcus's business relationships expanded significantly through Elizabeth's family connections and social skills, opening doors to new markets and opportunities that had been previously inaccessible. Railroad executives and grain buyers who had dealt with the Carmichael family for years began offering favorable contracts that benefited both cattle and transportation aspects of the merged operations. The success of their partnership encouraged Marcus and Elizabeth to pursue ambitious expansion plans that neither could have accomplished alone. They invested in new breeding stock, upgraded facilities, purchased additional land that extended the ranch's reach while creating jobs for more local families who depended on agricultural work. Elizabeth's financial acumen proved invaluable in managing the complex business arrangements that arose from merging to family enterprises. She understood investment strategies, contract negotiations, and market analysis in ways that complemented Marcus's practical knowledge of cattle ranching and land management. Creating a formidable business team, their personal relationship deepened, alongside their professional partnership, with genuine affection replacing the polite cooperation that had characterized their early marriage. Marcus found himself falling in love with Elizabeth's intelligence, strength, and warmth, while Elizabeth discovered that Marcus possessed integrity and vision that made him an ideal partner for both business and personal happiness. The couple began hosting elaborate dinner parties and social events that showcased their combined influence while strengthening business relationships and community ties. Elizabeth's skills as a hostess complemented Marcus's reputation for integrity and success, making their ranch a destination for influential visitors from across the country. Elizabeth became involved in women's organizations that promoted education, and opportunities for girls in rural communities, using her resources and connections to establish programs that would benefit future generations. Her philanthropic work reflected values she shared with Marcus about using wealth and influence to create positive change rather than merely accumulating more possessions. Marcus discovered that marriage to Elizabeth had made him a better leader and businessman, as her counsel helped him make more thoughtful decisions about everything from hiring practices to investment strategies. Her different perspective challenged him to think more broadly about his responsibilities and opportunities as a successful rancher. Their first wedding anniversary approached with both Marcus and Elizabeth marveling at how completely their relationship had transformed from reluctant obligation to genuine love and partnership. They had created a life together that satisfied their individual ambitions while building something greater than either could have achieved alone. Elizabeth had become pregnant during their first year of marriage, adding another dimension to their partnership as they prepared to welcome the next generation of the combined Blackwood-Carmichael legacy. The prospect of children excited both partners, who looked forward to raising sons and daughters who would inherit not just wealth, but also values about hard work, community responsibility, and family loyalty. The ranch prospered under their joint management, becoming one of the most successful and respected operations in Texas. Their reputation for fair dealing, quality livestock, and community involvement attracted business opportunities that expanded their influence while maintaining the personal relationships that made their work meaningful. Marcus often reflected on how wrong his initial fears about arranged marriage had been, realizing that his father's business instincts had led to personal happiness as well as professional success. Elizabeth represented everything he could have wanted in a partner, combining beauty and intelligence with strength and integrity that made her an ideal companion for facing whatever challenges their future might bring. Elizabeth wrote regular letters to her family in Virginia, describing her happiness in Texas and encouraging other young women to remain open to unexpected opportunities for love and fulfillment. Her marriage had exceeded every expectation, proving that arranged marriages could succeed when both partners approached them with respect, honesty, and willingness to build something meaningful together as they celebrated their first anniversary. With friends and family who had witnessed their transformation from reluctant strangers to devoted partners, Marcus and Elizabeth looked forward to decades of continued growth and happiness together. Their love story had begun with dread and obligation, but had evolved into one of the most successful partnerships in Texas, demonstrating that sometimes the best things in life come from unexpected directions. 5 years after their wedding, Marcus and Elizabeth Blackwood had become one of the most respected and influential couples in Texas, their ranch serving as a model for successful agricultural operations throughout the American West. The rolling Stone Ranch had expanded to encompass over 50,000 acres, supporting hundreds of families while maintaining the community values that had always characterized the Blackwood approach to business. Elizabeth had proven herself to be far more than just the wife of a successful rancher, establishing herself as a formidable businesswoman in her own right, who commanded respect from railroad executives, cattle buyers, and political leaders throughout the region. Her intelligence and strategic thinking had contributed significantly to the ranch's growth and prosperity, making her an equal partner in every sense. The couple's 3 children had brought joy and purpose to their marriage that exceeded even their happiest expectations from those early days when they were still learning to love each other. Their eldest son, William, showed promise as a future ranch leader, while their daughter, Margaret, displayed the intelligence and determination that would serve her well in whatever path she chose to follow. Marcus often told friends that marrying Elizabeth had been the best decision of his life, even though it hadn't felt like his decision at the time. Her influence had made him a better man, a more successful businessman, and a more thoughtful leader who considered the broader implications of his choices for workers, community members, and future generations. Elizabeth's transformation from reluctant Virginia bride to beloved Texas ranch wife had become legendary throughout the region, inspiring other young women who found themselves in arranged marriages to approach their situations with optimism and determination. Her success demonstrated that love could grow from respect and shared values. Even when initial attraction was absent, The ranch house had been expanded several times to accommodate their growing family and their responsibilities as hosts too important. Visitors from across the country and around the world, foreign investors, government officials, and fellow ranchers regularly sought their advice and hospitality, making the Rolling Stone Ranch a center of influence that extended far beyond cattle and agriculture. Elizabeth's philanthropic work had established schools, libraries, and medical facilities throughout rural Texas, creating lasting improvements in the quality of life for thousands of families who lived in remote areas where such services had previously been unavailable. Her charitable foundation had become one of the most respected organizations in the state. Known for practical solutions rather than symbolic gestures, Marcus had been elected to the state legislature, where his reputation for integrity and practical wisdom made him an effective advocate for rural communities and agricultural interests. Elizabeth's political instincts and connections helped him navigate complex issues while maintaining the independence and principle.